Hello, everyone. My name's Süss, and I am your First Fridays Art Talk moderator. Welcome to our Art Talk tonight. There are a whole bunch of art events, open galleries, and video art to see this weekend, and it's also Culture Days, so it's a really busy weekend in the Exchange District. But here for the Art Talk, we're going to be talking with artist Jennie O, and I'll tell you more about that in a little bit. If you are watching on our YouTube channel, I'll just invite you to log in and you can field some comments and questions our way throughout. If you are logging in from our website, you can just go to the spot there where it says join the chat, and you can sign in with your Google account or your Gmail or whatever account you usually use to sign in with YouTube. And we'd really love to communicate with you throughout the talk as you think about the art and the slides and the topic. So I'm just gonna do a land acknowledgement, and then I'll highlight some of the events that our members are having this weekend. So it's up there, and I invite you to read it along with me if you want. So I'll just say the First Fridays organization was started in order to encourage people to come to the Exchange District in Winnipeg. And we acknowledge that the Exchange District is located within Treaty 1 territory, the original lands of the Anishinaabe, Nahiawewuk, Ojibwe, Dakota, and Dene people, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. We acknowledge that our water comes from Treaty 3 territory, and much of our hydroelectric power comes from Treaty 5 territory. And we'd like to work together towards greater understanding and acting on how to decolonize art, artistic practice, and public discourse, and ourselves. We humbly acknowledge that the Indigenous peoples' inclusive legacies of traditions, customs, knowledges, and languages. So I just want to highlight a few of the things that are going on this weekend. I was just looking at the What's On website that features a lot of our member organizations events, and right at the corner of Albert and Arthur, it's going to be hopping tonight. There just are a lot of open galleries right around there. At 62 Albert, the Manitoba Institute of Sculptors and Artists is open. The Art Beat Studio is open at 63 Albert. The Kathleen Crosby Gallery is open. All along there, 65 Fleet Gallery is open. The Plant Lab Botanical design is open. It's just all open, like all along Albert there. So very exciting tonight. On Arthur, on the main floor, the Costume Museum of Canada is open, and they've got some special pandemic fashion available on display. In the same building, Unit 716, there's the Chasing Artwork Studio. There's the Seduta Art Store, the Red River Bookstore, and Jazz Winnipeg tonight has a public art installation project that's been expanded for Culture Days. And there's a bunch of local musicians and filmmakers that have worked at that. Of course, the Acadian Gunnery, I'm having trouble saying that. Acadian Gunner Gallery has got a whole bunch of new stuff open. And on Cumberland, the Arts Accessibility Network is open till 9. And also in Cumberland at 3 in the same building is the exhibit EcoCraft, and they're open till 9 tonight. So from 7 till 9. So if you feel like jetting down there after the talk, you can see all the works. that we're talking about, and the other artist scientist collaborations. Um, there's for Culture Days. There's also the first Winnipeg Chinatown night market. So it is on tonight and tomorrow night until 9 p.m. And again, there's going to be performance, dance, and comedy. Um, so that is very exciting. On Main Street, Cyrus Smith is back with a work with Paul Zacharias. And there's just the list is quite long of all the stuff that's happening tonight. So if you feel like having some fun, you can do that. A lot of the galleries are open till 9. And then the Windex Festival, WNDX.org, is having some works as well, showing at Cinematheque this weekend. So there's lots of stuff every day, right through till Sunday. And without further ado, I'd just like to begin to introduce our guest, Jennie O. And I'm just going to read her bio. So Jennie O or Jennie O'Keefe is a self-taught multimedia artist living in Winnipeg, and she's exhibited internationally and has been featured in several publications, including Craft, Border Crossings, Jezebel, Dwell, The Lonely Planet, The Guardian, and was featured in a short doc for CBC Arts. Her most notable projects of late are Hutty for the Winnipeg Warming Hut International Competition. Sorry, it's just the Warming Hut International Competition, version 19, and Spruce Woods for the Ice Hotel 29 in Sweden. And throughout her art career, she's always reused and upcycled materials and admits that it started as a means to be frugal. But in more recent years, she's had a mind shift that is focused on the urgency of climate change action. So she is mindful and selective of materials and processes and their long-term effects. Outside of her artistic practices, she manages a ceramic studio and an event production and arts consultation company, Fat Jockey. So welcome, Jennie O, to First Friday's Art Talk. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. This is super fun. What a great day to be here with so much going on across Winnipeg, First Fridays and Culture Days. So thank you for having me.
Awesome. We're pleased to have you. So, I'm going to talk a little bit about EcoCraft, maybe just a tiny bit at first, which is that it is a collaboration. It's a STEAM collaboration, which is science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics is STEAM. So it's like STEM plus A for art. And so this exhibit is a STEAM collaboration between artists and scientists. And you were paired with Dr. Kevin Fraser, an ornithologist. Can you tell me, do you want to start with telling me a bit about your collaboration, or do you want to look straight at the slides and look at the work?
I'd be happy to talk about the collaboration first. I think will set the tone for the work that we prepared slides for today. I was paired by the curator, Seema Goel, who is curator of EcoCraft. She's a scientist and an artist. So this project is dear to her heart. And she put together a bunch of artists. Well, all artists had to apply. And I applied to the project, and she selected me and paired me with Dr. Kevin Fraser, who's a bird scientist, an ornithologist. It seems like every time I say ornithologist, everyone's like, what is that? But it's somebody who specializes in birds. And Kevin and I just hit it off right from the start. Seema said that she was very excited for our partnership because she just knew that we're gonna gel. We have mutual love for the outdoors, specifically canoeing, and And animals, my dog is barking. Apologies for that. She wants to go outside. So yeah, the pairing was really successful. And Kevin actually has a master's in fine arts, whereas I'm self-taught. So it was very interesting to come together and work on this project. Yeah.
Excellent. When I was chatting with Seema a little bit about the EcoCraft exhibition, it's her second sort of round of pairing scientists with artists. And she talked about the first one which was initiated by neuroscientists. And so they said, hey, we want people to know more about what neuroscientists do. So she got some artists and paired them with neuroscientists, and the whole purpose of it was to sort of explain to the public what neuroscientists did. And then she had this opportunity to do another one on climate change, and it was so the whole exhibit is artists and scientists pairs, but because it wasn't initiated by a group, as the first one was with neuroscientists, she said that she was like looking for both pairs. So I think so there are, if anyone decides that they're going to go down to EcoCraft or to the C2 Center for Craft at 329 Cumberland, you'll see that there's like a wide variety of collaborators. And Seema was really excited about your collaboration, Jennie, because it was, she was excited about, how you might connect. And I know when I was first contacting you, you were like, oh, I can't, I'm out of town, I'm canoeing. And then Kevin was like, I'm out of town, I'm canoeing, I'm out of town, I'm canoeing. so, so once you decided that you both loved canoeing and the outdoors and making art, how did your sort of work begin? Like, where did you start?
That's a good question. We basically started on Zoom like we are today because COVID was, we were in lockdown at the time. So I would say 3/4 of our interaction was via Zoom or phone call because of COVID. And, it ripped through my house and it ripped through his house and various lockdowns in between since last spring when I was first brought onto this project. So we began on Zoom by me showing slides of my work and him talking about his research. And I think he was specifically taken away by some of my my bird hybrids. And I don't have a slide, but I do have an image. This is one that he really liked. It's a Canada goose person. Its name is MC Goose in a Hudson Bay jacket. And it's whimsical. And he was really taken by that one. And so specifically, and we started talking about specifically the purple martin. That's the bird that the species that he focuses on, while there are others like the common robin and other birds. The purple martin was the one that we talked about the most. And we talked about creating adaptation suits because it was something that I've worked on is costuming. I've worked in film and doing costumes and creating outfits for little dolls. And I've worked on with some middle school students on a Winnipeg council project called the Craftastics. And so we thought about creating costumes on birds. And because Kevin works for the University of Manitoba, he had access to an amazing collection of birds, taxidermied birds. And when I was able to go over to the University of Manitoba and look through their collection, which is amazing. And some are extremely old, some are new, some were missing, wings or that sort of thing, because the species were old. And so the first thing was to look at the birds and to talk about how it could be done. And we talked about, pinning on or sewing around, but not harming the birds. So that's one thing I should say, is that none of the birds were harmed in this project. They were already taxidermied. And then from there, we talked about how we're going to display the birds and which birds we're going to use. And the next assignment was actually on Kevin to create kind of a scientific spreadsheet of different birds, their habitats, the problems affect, how climate change is affecting or will be affecting some of the birds, and what the visual adaptation of these birds could be. So that was really great. So Kevin put this great spreadsheet together. I love spreadsheets. And we worked from there. So I looked at it. The next time we came back, we actually had SEMA come to the lab at the University of Manitoba, and we went through their collection. And I'll be honest, some of the birds were decided because their plumage was bright and vibrant still, or the message that we wanted to convey was really important. Like, based on this spreadsheet, we're like, okay, we have to have an eagle in this project. Yeah, so that was kind of how we started. And then we actually had about one day where we worked together. I primarily made most of the adaptation suits, and then we had one day where we kind of outfitted them and did some work on their stands that the birds are on, and talked about how we're going to display them, etc. Yeah. Oh, I think you're muted.
You're right. Well, maybe we could have a look. Let's have a look
Yeah.
at them.
So this one here is the Marshal of Hope. And while this is the first of the slideshow, it was actually the last one we worked on. And the Marshal of Hope was the bird that we thought was something that it was kind of the hook to bring people in. Because while we wanted everybody the viewer, to find humor in the work, and then to dig deeper and find the problems associated from climate change, the eagle is the Marshal of Hope because of human interaction. Eagles, and actually even more so the bald eagle, this is a golden eagle. The bald eagle, if you can recall, a number of years ago, there was an agrochemical called DDT. And that chemical, and I'm not the scientist here, but that chemical, in simple terms, created through the food chain, made the bald eagle's eggs become brittle and not viable. And with the banning of DDT, the rise of the bald eagle population soared. And so that's why we see, like, on Bishop Grandin, you can look up and see bald eagles flying in the sky. Humans actually made that change. And so this golden eagle here that we created is the Marshal of Hope. So it's kind of the bird that brings you into the show, literally, quite literally, with all the other work. But for our work, it's the Marshal of Hope, because we know that if we do one little thing, we can change birds and their trajectory with climate change.
It's quite incredible that that work that highlighted how DDT was affecting everyone. It's really known as a as an environmental landmark. That book, Silent Spring. Um, I took a trip to the gallery this afternoon, and one of the workers encouraged me to look into the eagle's eyes. So I took this photo this afternoon and just thought I'd give everyone an opportunity to look into that eagle's eyes. And if you do go down to the Center for Craft, you can look into that eagle's eyes. And it's quite a striking experience to be able to, nearly be nose to nose with a raptor that you kind of hope, for their sake and yours, that you never will have to be face to face. The talons are so long. They're, you just can imagine them going into your flesh. Like they really are. They don't want that. They're really.
I have to say that, yeah, this bird is very daunting at first, but it became kind of, well, actually, I never took this bird home because I was too afraid to work on it in my studio because it is so big that I didn't want to bring it into my car and work on it in my studio. So I primarily worked on it just at the university, but I took photos of it, and I took patterns and worked out some of the patterns at home. Like I just kind of took paper and did some stuff, and then I tried to make stuff at home, but I couldn't. I had to actually work on it on site with the bird. It's very hard to create outfits for birds. There's no pattern for a bird. So I tried to, but it's a really organic process. You kind of have to work with the bird in place. So I had high hopes to be able to like make a paper pattern, bring the pattern home, make it, and then attach it to the bird, but that didn't work. I had to do it on site at the university. And Kevin helped. I had him do some of the sewing. He was very excited about doing some sewing. It's like, I haven't done this in years and years. So that was a fun little collab.
Yeah, it's very cool. I could just talk about how much I love it for a bit, but let's have a look at some of the other birds and their how they're being affected by climate change.
Sure. So this is a purple martin, who we've named Marty McFlyer. And this photo was taken in my backyard. And the original bird actually came from the Purple Martin Society. If some of you recall, there's a whole bunch of, around the city and in the province, there's these white houses with kind of the red roofs. Those are Purple Martin houses. And so that society gifted this bird to Kevin because they knew the founder of that organization, my understanding, passed away. And then this bird became part of Kevin's personal collection and is now at the University of Manitoba. So I was able to bring this one home, and I created a jetpack. And so the thing with the Purple Martin is its issue is timing. It's a migratory bird that flies about 10,000 kilometers from the Amazon back to Winnipeg annually. And with climate change, the season may change, affecting insects and their food as well as their habitat. So the idea of the jetpack is to be able to like get it here quickly before their food disappears, etc., and to create a good environment for their young. And so this one is the prototype. So you'll see that the jetpack is a little bit different in this one than the next photo, which is taken in the gallery. And at the back of the jetpack, you'll see maybe a part of a watch, and it's a clock. And that was something that on Kevin's master spreadsheet was to have a clock, goggles, clock. And so I was like taking these things. I made the the goggles. Then I made the jetpack. The jetpack's actually made out of a piece of pink insulation foam that I carved and painted, and then stuck bits of wire, random things I had in my toolbox, and gaff tape I had lying around, which is the black part around it. And then the clock is just a piece of an old watch, might have been my grandmother's, but anyway, it's a clock that's on there. And to Kevin's suggestion, the clock is actually set to 11 o'clock, which, if you think about it, is the 11th hour. So that's Marty McFlyer. And I'm just going to put my dog outside because she's barking. So I'm going to let you, Süss, introduce maybe the next slide quickly.
Sure. I'll just say I really love the jetpack. The jetpack was the first slide that I saw, and it was just really fascinating to, just to see this sort of, it seems like kind of sci-fi, but with technology that we have been imagining for quite a while. I think it's this particular bird that made me call this talk Avian Outfitters, which this is the this particular adaptation that you've created for it is the one which is not a costume. So it is not something that the bird wears, but something that the bird sort of needs. So I'll throw to you, Jennie, and can you talk about this one?
Yeah, for sure. So that you raised a good point there. So we created adaptation kind of costumes and adaptation props. And this one I would say is more of an adaptation prop. So this is the Canada Jay that we've named this entire piece Jay, Co, and Hatchlings. And the Canada Jay, it lives here year round. Some of you may know it as the Whiskey Jack. I believe it was not that long ago, 2018 maybe, where it was officially named the Canada Jay. This bird in particular is a little bit kind of lost its sparkle. It's a little bit drab in appearance, but we still really wanted to talk about this one. The biggest threat with this one is warming winters. Because it lives here year round, one of its things that it does is it takes its food and stores it away, just like a squirrel would go into your attic. This bird in particular will hide it under moss and create a mini environment to keep those food stores from rotting in the cold. And the cold will keep it from it rotting. However, as our winters become warmer, their food stores will begin to rot. And so we decided to create a little refrigerator with a bunch of little compartments with some of its food and other things that it stores. So if we move to the next slide, we can maybe see the fridge with all its food pieces. So we have some bones in there. They're actually pigeon bones that were kind of from broken specimen from the University of Manitoba. There was some shrapnel of bones that we're able to put in. There's some dried mushrooms. There's some other feathers from other birds because they are carnivores. There's some dried blueberries. There's some insects. And so you can see that there's a fridge and there's a lock on there. And so the apparel that the Canada Jay is wearing is a lock. So it's protecting its food with this little lock and the fridge. And just before the show, Kevin was on a canoe trip, and we were like, Kevin, really need to bring back a piece of lichen for the piece. So 2 days before the show, or as we're setting up, we put the piece of lichen on top of the fridge there, because, like I said before, it would store its food under moss or lichen, and so we really wanted to bring that into this piece. So um, our two worlds collided here, three worlds.
Nice. Yeah, I was surprised when I looked in and saw the sort of drawer of bones, where a a human might look in their electric refrigerator and see a drawer of, I don't know, on the fridge purchasing photos, it's maybe a drawer of oranges or something, but surprise, it's bones,
Bones, pigeon bones.
pigeon bones.
Yeah. And then,
So that one's very cool. Yeah, let's move on to the next bird.
so this one is M.O. Pine, Monsieur Opine. And O is because I'm O'Keefe, but also pine, to pine for old times, pine cones. So there's a little bit of kind of play on words there. And so with this bird, you'll see there's a black cord around its neck, and that's a pigeon skull. So from one of the same corpses of the broken bits that are in the Jayco, I took took a skull and put it around its neck to be kind of like a almost like a bolero, like it's flaunting its pigeon skull around its neck. And to me, this is the piece that really spoke to me. The snowy owl was the piece that I worked on probably the longest, maybe over 20 hours on this piece. And I actually had a friend of mine, a neighbor, who is a bird watcher and retired, and an avid seamstress. And she worked with me to help me create the pattern of this camouflage coat. So the threat for the snowy owl, which some of you may already have mustered up, is the warming of our winters, much like the Jayco. But with the warming of the winters, the snowy owl will not be camouflaged anymore. So the grounds will be more brown. So I created a reversible kind of tuxedo-like camouflage cape. And so the outside that you see here is pine cone. And then the reverse, you're not able to see. It kind of looks like a rock face. So it's kind of reversed depending on where it is. And the buttons on the front, the enrichment pieces, the buttons are pieces of birch that I sawed and turned into, not birch, sorry, willow from my backyard, sewed, drilled holes in and sewed buttons on to piece it together. The coattails match the wings that are folded back, the bird. And then I was going to leave it without anything on top. And Kevin's like, well, another bird or something else could see it from above, or a human or whatever. And so it should have something on top. So created a little fascinator of pine cones and sticks that sits atop its head here.
That's very cool. I think, a lot of people, relate to the snowy owl because of its fame, its movie fame, and book fame in some young adult literature. But I remember growing up and having a children's picture book about a bunny who changed, color, and it's kind of, I mean, there are many aspects of your work that are, informative and cute and funny and beautiful and sad. And, it is interesting and sad to imagine, all of the different things, but um, the fact that the snowy owl may not may not be able to camouflage as it sort of needs to in order to, hunt. But
Mm.
a fascinator is very cute.
Okay. And who knows, it may be able to adapt, but maybe not fast enough, right?
Mhm.
So it could change because it does have some brown markings on it. And that's where, if Kevin was here, you could talk about maybe the adaptation of changing color over time and birds in different habitats.
Mhm. And I
One
think
thing oh, go ahead.
well, I was just going to say about some cities, there the cycle of freeze and melt and snow, is sort of rapidly changing more, as the winters warm. So it's not just that the overall, in some places, overall the winters are shorter, but there certainly is more erratic weather,
For
as
sure,
we're kind of noticing.
for sure. The next photo, if we want to, the next slide, if we want to go to the next slide, is not snow but fire. So we're kind of just switching over to warmth. And so um, fire is, well, sometimes fire, often fire, forest fires are good to rejuvenate. Sometimes with climate change, um, the expansion of fires is a threat to habitats for birds and other animals, species, um, and and the length of them for sure. So we've created here a collection, actually two collections. So overall, these are the firefighters. And the firefighters are broken up into two groups. And the two groups are based on habitat. So when Kevin and I got together and we're going through this and talking about firefighters and birds that are affected by fire, and on his list, like I said, that master list was to create heat proof outfits. And so I was going through the collection and I'm choosing the ones that I thought were like super cute and pretty. Um, and he was like, okay, this is great, but we also have to think about them by their habitat. So he's kind of recollecting, and I'm doing it aesthetically. So I've got this firefighter grouping, and there's maybe 10 on the table, and I'm doing it by like, okay, I want this one because this one looks like this, and I love the the barn swallow because it's got this shimmery blue. Um, and so he was like, okay, we need to separate these by habitat. So we separated them by the boreal flock and the prairie flock. So you'll see on the left hand side of this image, the first three like split in half, like going down, um, is the prairie flock, and then to the right of that is the oh no, sorry, it's the reverse, boreal then prairie here. So these are the firefighters. Um, they were all given matching outfits, and if you recall, if we go to a close up of one of them here, the next slide, here we go. So we have here a palm warbler, and the palm warbler is part of the boreal flock. And the outfit is made of the same material as the Marshal of Hope at the beginning, the golden eagle. So it's kind of a grayish wool. And then on its back is some reflective, I think it's reflective, I think I found a reflective shoelace that maybe somebody who works that needs high vis apparel. So it's a shoelace that's cut off and sewn onto the back. So I created these outfits to kind of match, to fit the birds individually. So each one has its own pattern. So I had to make them, create a pattern with each of them, which was pretty intricate, and then cut the kind of tails, kind of similar to the owl, the MO pine, Monsieur Opine, has a similar style. So they're all kind of like these, I kind of think of them as these tuxedo apparel that's kind of, these beautiful birds wearing something kind of opulent, but at the same time, that has a very important job. And when Kevin had kind of thought about, this shiny material, he was like taking some material from his kids' toys and wrapped it around a bird and sent photos. Like I said, we had originally met on Zoom and communicated through email, and we're showing pictures, and it looked really good. It looked very spacey and futuristic. And after thinking about it a little bit, this material would burn quickly and melt to the bird. So I had to be really thoughtful of the material in making this. I wanted it to be as realistic as possible. So and talking about it with Kevin, he was like, oh my, I didn't even think about that. But of course, so this shiny kind of, I think it was a Barbie cape or something, or some superhero cape that was shiny, if you can imagine, stretchy silver material. And it looked really great on the bird, looked kind of futuristic. And I just was like, well, if it's fighting fire, it's going to burn, it's plasticky, it's going to melt. So this is made out of wool. And if you think about firefighters, and if you were to be caught in a fire, you're going to be given a wool coat or a wool blanket or coat to douse the fire. So that was the material for these birds. It was considered, thinking of the bird and having something that they could fly with through a forest fire and not have it melt to them. And then the reflective tape on the top is so that the other birds flying above them can see them. And hopefully there, the moonlight or, whatever, if there's helicopters or something flying around, or planes with water bombers, the lights would shine on the birds and they can see and find a safe place to gather and collect. So this one's, again, the palm warbler of the boreal forest. And then the next one, I just wanted to show a different vantage point. So all the birds came on these stands as part of the collection of the University of Manitoba. So they're all in different positions. So this one, you can see kind of the front of it. And another thing I was thinking of is I was referencing looking up old firefighter outfits, and they were kind of like these, double-breasted jackets, and they were very formal and, with belts. And so I wanted to kind of think about that too. So I have little tiny beads, and there's 4 of them. I'm not sure if you can see on this photo, but there's tiny beads that kind of are to be like buttons. And all these adaptation suits, these firefighter jackets, are removable. So they slip right off the bird. So there's nothing attached to the bird. In some cases, like the fascinator on the owl, they're actually pinned to the bird. And Kevin had said that was totally fine because there's styrofoam underneath. And often a lot of the birds, the taxidermy birds bits are pinned to the body. So the tails would be pinned, the wings are pinned. So it wasn't obstructive for me to pin some items to the bird. So nothing has been glued. In this case, it will slip right off, but on the owl and on the eagle, they're just little pins that are held onto the bird, or that are fastened to the bird, but they pop right off, like very simply. So if these birds get jostled, the pins will start kind of moving. So when I went into the gallery with Seema, I had to do some kind of pushing down of the pins, or actually put some of the pieces right on the birds for the exhibit. Another thing I should say about the exhibit here that's really interesting is that because it's a museum, a textile museum as well. It shares a space with the Manitoba Muse. I can't remember at the moment,
The Craft
but
Museum and Library.
thank you, Craft Museum and Library. I had to freeze all the birds before bringing them in for fear of moth eggs that could be stored in the plumage of the birds. So about 5 days before the show, I was like, okay, Jennie, the birds that you brought home need to be put through a freezing cycle twice before they come down to the gallery. So I had to take all the birds, wrap them up, put them in my deep freeze for 24 hours, take them out, thaw them, and then put them back in, and then take them out and then bring them to the gallery, which was not something I had expected, but I was laughing because, it's a very unusual project and it was just part of the process. So I was happy to oblige.
It's also good to know how to get rid of clothing moths, in your house. A cycle of two freezings,
Yeah,
24 hours. I kind of love the idea of the firefighting birds, um, that their costumes slip off, and I can just sort of imagine them, like storing them in a place, and then oh, it's time to put them on, so they just like fly up to it and slip it on, as they're going, and
yeah,
it's
totally.
very, yeah, they could
Like,
take it off themselves if they wanted.
as if they're like the costumes are suspended and the birds just fly right through to put them on.
Yeah.
That's a funny thought.
Yeah. Well, that is
Yeah.
so interesting. I like how they're grouped, and I like the sort of the firefighting team, and how those birds often do appear, together if people see them, at the feeder or wherever you see them. It's not just one solemn one solitary bird. They're definitely in groups, so it's cool that they look like they're acting like a team. And that I was also gonna just kind of cut back to ask you to talk a bit more about some of the things that I think we. Okay, just gonna cut myself off. I think we have looked at all of the birds at this point, right? Okay, good.
Yeah, that's all of
Oh,
them.
okay, so I just want to mention again before I sort of go back to the thing I was going to talk about sort of, I'll tell you what the topic, like what what human activity sort of means, and what changes have been done and are possible to do. But if anyone who's like watching or listening wants to participate in the chat, you can log in, and you can log in through your Gmail account or your Google account, or your YouTube account. If you have some questions for us, we'd be happy to field the questions and answer those things. But sort of getting back to, how humans, you mentioned how humans can change their activity. You mentioned, banning DDT, and how that really made a difference to the bald eagle specifically. Um, but can you also talk about some other changes that have worked? I guess I'll just mention that since we began talking, I've been hearing a lot of things on the radio, like, hey, turn your lights off, sort of like before and after dusk, so that birds can, you know, that it's helpful for migration patterns, for birds to be able to make their way, or notice that it's dark, or to, make adjustments that they really need to do. So that's one thing that, people can do, like, today, tomorrow, throughout the migrating season, but sort of on like a bigger sort of infrastructure picture, or um, what are some other things that you've learned in this process?
Yeah, for sure. I think one thing I've noticed is my love for bird has increased. I've noticed them more. I'm more adamant to like fill my bird feeder outside. So especially right now, because they're just storing up for their big migration. Some of them to as far as 10,000 kilometers, like the purple martin. So that's one thing is putting out food for birds, planting native species is another thing. Um, Something that might not be accessible to all is shade grown coffee. And I believe there's only 3 in Canada that is a certified shade grown coffee maker. So maybe that's something that we could lobby to have more of and make more affordable. I think there's one called Beans and Birds that's roasted here in Canada. That's about for £1, about $22. But I can't see it. You can buy it online, but you can't, that I've seen, be able to buy it in Winnipeg. So it isn't accessible. So, and also buying fair trade shade grown coffee is not accessible for many people, even just with the increase of food costs. I know it's not achievable for everybody, but maybe that's something that we can bring to our government to say, let's, protect more areas, support, uh, um, you know, creating habitats for birds and buying coffee at that's that's affordable, maybe subsidized by our government. So that's one thing. Another thing that is keeping cats indoors. I know that again is if you have an outdoor cat, it's hard to retrain them to come in. Once an outdoor cat, always an outdoor cat, but maybe you can put on a bell. Süss had mentioned at one point these colorful colors. They kind of look like um, they're multicolored and have different dimensions to it. I don't know the success of that. I've seen it. I should talk to Kevin about that, but it's something worth exploring for birds or for cats. But we do know that cats kill a large number of birds. So it's something to be mindful of if you're getting a new cat. Is to think about keeping it indoors or putting a bell on your bird or put a collar on. So that's another thing. And then again, just going to your support policies that protect habitat. And I know that through another hat that I wear, an organization called CPAWS is lobbying for turning Assiniboine forest into a nationally recognized protected urban park. So protecting our urban parks is something that we can try and do. Sign, that's an organization that you can go to and sign that petition to create a protected, like everybody deserves to have an urban forest close to where they live. And I know many people don't live close to that forest in particular. But the more that we try to protect within our own neighborhoods and communities, the better, because we know lots of birds go to forests, and you'll see lots of people with their binoculars doing some bird watching. And going back to the eagle, one thing that Hydro Poles is creating, that was an adaptation, is creating infrastructure and making sure that infrastructure that's created that has deterrence for birds. So now I believe hydro poles have these kind of movable things on them, so birds of prey don't go on top and get electrocuted. And I believe that's one reason why the golden eagle has increased in population, is because of that adaptation to hydro poles. So when new things are developed and put up, I think lots of research needs to go into it. So it's important for us to connect with our councillors, our MPs, MLAs, to when new things are put in place in our cities, because it affects all of us, birds, humans, everything. So to just be aware of what's going on in and around you, because the little things like birds can change everything. How we wake up in the morning hearing beautiful songs. So just being cognizant of what you see happening around you, and being active, taking action, even if it's just an email.
Mhm. I remember hearing um, a broadcaster on the radio talk about um, how after when the city was using malathion as a mosquito killer, that the morning after the city had sprayed, you couldn't hear any birds
Mm.
usually, and I think that the things that we can do for birds are we're learning more things I think all the time, and I know in our conversations before um, Jenny, before this talk, you had, just talked about, the importance of using the science that is developed and the studies that are developed to, not just inform, what happens and what people can do on a personal level, which is important, but also that, urban design and agriculture and all sort of parts of our societies are informed by science in a way that we try to minimize our human impact
Mhm.
on the environment. And um, I remember also one thing that you had said, Jenny, was noticing sort of how the world really changed for COVID, and how, humans are able to, change a lot of behavior. Do you want to, I'll let you sort of say that in your own words.
Yeah, for sure. I think this is a conversation that I have often with my husband, especially over the last couple of years since COVID, is just seeing the collective efforts globally to, especially in the very beginning, um, to go into lockdown, to reduce the spread of COVID, and everybody doing their part to try to make that happen, and how, the threat was real, the threat was imminent, the threat was scary, and we all acted. Most of us acted. And if we take that urgency for climate change, how are we going to change the trajectory? Like, I believe humans can actually make change. And I think we proved that as humans, we can make change if we want to collectively. It has to be a collective effort. Um, and, we also have to do our small little bit in whatever way we can. If it's, just putting out, breadcrumbs outside for the birds who are flying south tomorrow morning, to, writing an email to your city councillor, MLA, MP about protecting habitats, by putting stickers on your windows, or just taking like a white Sharpie to your window and doing a bunch of dots. I believe we created a field guide for the exhibit. Kevin and I did that. It was kind of something that we wanted to do throughout our whole process. And we put together a little field guide talking about each bird, so that there was some conversation or some information about all the birds. So we created a little booklet. And in there, we primarily Kevin created a lot of that information for that book. We worked on it collectively, but was primarily Kevin, because he's the scientist and knows a lot more about birds and climate change than I do. But I believe there's a website that he references in the field guide called flap.org. And in there is some suggestions on how you can make really simple, inexpensive stickers or marks on your windows, so birds don't fly into your windows and die. We know that a lot of birds die every year from flying into windows, especially with lights on at night. I believe there's been changes to office buildings, turning off lights at night, especially in big cities. I believe also the Eiffel Tower recently is going dark after a certain amount of time or at a certain hour. And that's going to change migratory patterns for birds, I believe, and just you know, conservation in general. Yeah, so lots we can do bit by bit.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We could talk for probably a long time about this exhibit, but I'll just encourage all of our listeners to go down and see the exhibit. The field guide is only available in person at this moment, but the I'll make sure that I put the website into the video description so that you can have a look at that and look back at that as well. I'll just also say there are a lot of other collaborations in the EcoCraft exhibition there at the C2 Center for Craft on Cumberland. So, you know, for another 90 minutes, anyone could go down and have a look at it in person. And then the hours are on the website as well. So I'm just gonna say we've reached the end of our time, and thank you so much, Jennie O, for joining us today. Really appreciate it. We're really grateful for you know, the playfulness that you've brought to this project and the whimsy and that you bring to all your projects, really. So we'll also send a link to some of your other work. We'll drop that into the description of the video so that people can find out more about you and your future projects. I do want to also like just let's take another minute and just can you tell me about how this project between you and Kevin is like maybe not over?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's um you know, we got really excited working on this project, and Kevin, I think, being a master of fine art, so he has a bachelor of fine art and master of fine art, and he's primarily in the field working with birds and at the University of Manitoba. So he was very excited to dip back into art making and thinking about art. And we are looking at this project as a launching point, because all the birds that were used, all the specimens that were used need to go back to its original state, because they are property of the University of Manitoba, and there's an educational permit that is held with Kevin in order for us to work with the birds. So there is an educational scientific thought process that went into it. Kevin does have some more birds that are currently in a freezer that he is looking to, with me, have taxidermied and be able to manipulate that bird and on its structure, like think about the structure that it rests upon more thoughtfully. Like all the birds that were used in this project were on its original stand, except for the Jayco and Sons. We managed to unhinge. There's some wire on its legs that we kind of bent and slid up, and or actually no, it was on there, but we took the stick out of the post and stuck it onto the fridge. So we just took the base off of that bird. So with the new project, we're able to think more thoughtfully about where and how the birds will be situated, and also thinking about this field guide that we created for the show, creating a coffee book based with some of the photos from the show. We're going to take some other images of the birds and create a coffee book, or just have them sit in kind of a photographic state because they do have to return, which is really, I think, a beautiful part about this. And thinking about the environment is not creating something necessarily that's permanent, and although the little pieces will be, but they're minor compared to the size of the birds. So yeah, we're looking to continue the project and excited to do that. Hopefully in the next few months, we'll get started. Thanks
I
for
love
bringing that up.
this. Oh, I love the idea. I love how I mean, I guess I've always loved like, little things like this, like the costumes and stuff. So I'm quite fascinated with this collaboration that you've done. I think it's so cool, and I just find that the way that you're using your imagination to, tell the story, and it really invites people into a world, where the birds are, there they are, they're doing their activity, they're surviving, they're, you know um, people can really, imagine the scenario, and it's playful and accessible, so that all of the information that, then there's a narrative that people can sort of put their imagination into. So I look forward to seeing these new directions um, that you're planning to go in. That's very cool. So I think with that, I'll just offer you a last comment, Jenny, if you'd like, and then I'll do some thank yous.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for having me a part of this First Friday talk here. Thanks to everybody who's joined in. Um, I hope you can all see. I think the show's on until the 29th. I know you can get a catalog today, but I think up until the 29th, look on their website for hours. And yeah, thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for your work and for talking with us. It's been a real pleasure. I'll also just give some other thank yous tonight to our intrepid broadcaster, Collective Broadcast, who sent us Aaron. Aaron, thank you so much for doing all the work of manipulating the slides and bringing this chat to us. Um, Thank you also to our funders, to the Winnipeg Arts Council and the Manitoba Arts Council. Thanks to the Exchange Biz, who is a co-sponsor, and to the Free Press as well, who is also a partner. So with that, I'll just say thank you again, and everyone have a great night. And there is so much art to see out in the Exchange District tonight and tomorrow, this weekend, and the Windex Festival continues to Sunday. So go out and see some art and have some fun. Thank you.